気づかなかったか？ザワールドオーバーヘブンはすでにその亀に拳を叩き込んでいたのだ。そして真実を
Yeah, this is a game about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so that might take some explaining. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure... Yeah, who am I fucking kidding? You clicked on this video, so you either already know or you don't really care. So, let's talk about the video game.
Eyes of Heavenの世界へようこそ。生きたまえ。
Eyes of Heaven is a 2v2 brawler/fighting game that has a wide selection of characters pulled from all 8 parts of JoJo's. If you're not caught up with JoJolion, don't worry, the developers weren't either. It's more or less a sequel to All-Star Battle, with the addition of 3D, more characters, and a single-player campaign. Already, it's kinda hard to see the purpose of this game, or at least what niche it fills. Now, I don't play or even like fighting games, I'll establish that bias on the outset, but there is no local multiplayer, and you need a teammate, which just seems contrary to the fighting game community's focus on skilled players duking it out 1v1. So, maybe the multiplayer isn't the focus, there is a campaign after all. We'll cover it more in depth later, but without the JoJo flavor, the single player is more or less like a Call of Duty campaign. Like, sure, it's there, and you get a chance to interact with a ton of the game's mechanics in a somewhat safe environment, but it does very little to prepare you for how the multiplayer is actually played. So, the multiplayer feels like an optional mode tacked onto a single player game, and the single player feels like it was designed to give you somewhere to learn the game before jumping into the multiplayer. So what's the point? With Eyes of Heaven, I'd say the entire point of the game is fanservice. Now, like 90% of the time, fanservice just means huge fucking anime titties, but remember that this game came out right after the anime for Part 3 finished. If you're a fan of the manga, which a lot of people are, this is your chance to see all your favorite characters in color, 3D, fully voiced, and interacting with each other. It's fanservice in the purest definition of the word. I'm a fan. I want to see Okuyasu. This game gives me Okuyasu. Although if you're trying to avoid spoilers, avoid this game like the fucking plague. I think the best example is that within the first 20 minutes, it spoils every single supporting character death from Part 3 in one fucking frame. When the game introduces a new part, it gives a little catch-up scene with some manga panels and the narrator we're all used to. But sometimes, like with Part 7 for example, it just spoils the entire fucking ending right there. I say this is for the fans, but I guess fuck you if you're a casual fan, and God forbid you're an anime only. If you've experienced the story up to the end of Part 7, or if you just don't mind spoilers, there's a ton of fun stuff here. Since the campaign is where most of that fun stuff is, that's what we'll be focusing on. We open up right at the end of Part 3, and everything is going more or less on script when Speedwagon fucking slams into the plot to contrive the story into existence. He explains that reality is breaking down, resulting in different timelines and dimensions all merging together, with old dead friends being revived as enemies, and that the only way to stop it is to collect the Holy Corpse. So you travel from era to era, knocking the sense back into our old friends and making plenty of new ones. Visually speaking, this is just JoJo's. On a technical level, the texture detail is a bit low, and I guess they could stand to have some more complicated particle effects, but that would just get in the way of the sound effects, which are honestly just stylish as hell. Overall, it runs well, so I mean, it can look like dog shit for all I care. Stylistically, I'm impressed at how well they were able to adapt all the characters, seeing as how Araki's art style has evolved dramatically over his career. Everything looked great together, even though the art styles have been slightly homogenized, so we do miss out on comically oversized Jonathan. As for how they sound, every character is exceptionally casted, and the vocal directing was pretty much perfect.
Aww.
Aw, that's so cute. I wish someone would talk to me like that. What the fuck? Okay.
What a dickhead.
もうてめえには何も言うことはねえ。その頭、とても哀れすぎて何も言えねえ。けなすやつは許さねえ。
Not to mention this announcer. That's so fucking great. I made that my kill sound for TF2. I absolutely stole it from Soundsmith, but it works so well. I can't extend the same compliments to the sound design itself. Obviously, David Production has the best sound design out of any JoJo adaptation. They're the ones that decide what stuff sounds like, so it's unfair to compare the DP sound design to earlier adaptations. but it honestly feels like they didn't try at all here. Almost every ability uses one of 3 generic swish sound effects, and every hit uses one of a few generic impact sounds. The audio engineering is good, so the overall soundscape is mixed well and has impact, but it lacks flavor. Yeah, it lacks flavor in a JoJo Bizarre Adventure game, which is almost nothing but flavor. This is the wrong franchise to have good audio engineering but poor sound design. I think as a general rule, every character should have their own unique soundscape. That might sound like a really high bar, but the other games at least try. Overall, it's not a crippling issue, but the voice actors are really the ones doing the heavy lifting. Now, initially I thought there wasn't that much battle music, but then I looked up the soundtrack and there's like 80 different tracks with the unique theme for each character. Most of them fit their character really well, and a lot of them are distinct, or at least have a distinct opening. Almost all the battle tracks make heavy use of standard rock instrumentals, so guitars and drums, which, you can't knock that, but it makes all the tracks sound kind of the same when you're actually playing. On top of that, the game will just pick one of the 2 people you're fighting and play their theme, so unless that track is particularly distinct, you're not going to realize that it is playing something unique. Like, sure, this is a funky guitar riff, but how was I supposed to know that's Josuke's theme? Now that I know that, I mean, it's appropriate, but I think the player just needs like one tiny push to understand that connection. Like a track title on the bottom of the screen or some shit, like it's a Need for Speed game. There are a few that I would like to highlight. Specifically, Dio's theme opens up with this fucking Toys R Us pipe organ before moving into some incredibly appropriate rock instrumentals. The cheap sounding pipe organ cracks me up since it communicates something about Dio that I'm not sure it intended to. The organ shows off perfectly how overdramatic and cocky he is, but the cheapness tells you that Dio's opinion of himself is not shared by everyone else. The only other song with a cheap sounding intro is Kira's, which sounds like a bootleg Queen song before moving into a genuinely awesome main theme. Now that I'm actually listening to their tracks, they're all really good. Some of them capture their character through unique instrumentals, like Whole Horse's theme sounds like a doofy spaghetti western, which is just so appropriate for him. And if you're paying attention, you'll pick up on a bunch of references to the bands that Araki originally referenced, like the Thunderstruck riff from Valentine's theme. The menu music is also really funky and catchy. A little bit too catchy. I've probably heard more than enough of the battle intro and outro tracks to last a few lifetimes, but I'm not annoyed by them. Battles play out as a third-person brawler. Most of the time it's 2v2, sometimes it's 2v1, and sometimes you have a horde fight with zombies. It's pretty standard brawler controls. You've got combos, you open up this menu and do special moves, and like, I don't know what's going on here, man. But beyond that, it's pretty standard. You can also run around the stage and grab items, or pick stuff up to chuck at people, which is always fucking hilarious. Combat is a little odd since it often just feels like a 2D fighting game with a 3D camera, which it kinda is to some extent. Pretty much every move will only affect a straight line in front of you, and there are only a handful of moves that have any width to them. This lack of width facilitates dodging for you and your enemies, and puts real importance on actually creating openings, since you can really easily miss an attack and leave yourself vulnerable. It does kind of feel like a holdover from the shift from 2D to 3D, but if it is intentional, that focus on openings is interesting and very JoJo accurate. It does take some adjustment if you're used to controlling a character like Kiryu, who is a lot less precise but has a much wider area of effect for his attacks. Sometimes you just feel like an idiot punching the air an inch away from the guy you wanted to hit before he just turns around and clocks you. Even when you are landing hits, it's still finicky since every combo and special move will inflict knockback, and you don't have any way to hit enemies when they're down. If you get them up against a wall, you can kind of finagle it into a stun lock, but that's like almost worse. Obviously it's like this to keep the game fair in multiplayer, but it shows where the game could have benefited from a tighter focus. There is no interaction on either side when you get knocked down, so keeping up pressure just amounts to hitting them, and then waiting patiently for them to get back up so you can hit them again. It gives fights this breakneck stop-and-go pace that's just kind of profoundly unfun. To be clear, I'm saying that this pace is unfun, not the battles. And this tiny issue with pacing is most infuriating to me as a designer because it's such an easy fix. Look at Yakuza. You knock them down, and if you hit them again, they'll get back up pretty much instantly. If you don't hit them, they'll get back up on their own, but not as quickly. Why not just do that? It would give the fights a much better rhythm and pace, since it would turn getting a knockdown into an opportunity to either get some spacing or keep up the pressure. This pacing issue makes fights somewhat janky, but when it works, it's really fun. Admittedly, a lot of that fun is seeing how much love and care they put into portraying all the characters on both the gameplay and the aesthetic side. Every character has their own unique and faithful to source moveset, which makes the 2v2 battles really diverse in terms of abilities and stuff happening. And the focus on openings means that you actually have to figure out which of your abilities can punish your opponent's abilities.
Alright, here he comes. Here comes that boy.
Now, if you like JoJo's for the more cerebral fights where victory is achieved by figuring out how the enemy's ability works and how to exploit it, that's not what you're getting here. In most cases, an opening is just any attack that you dodged and the punish is pressing square. Unfortunately, this rhythm of openings and punishments is really kneecapped by the AI. It is pathetically pacifistic. Their favorite pastimes are running away, and just standing there menacingly. Ironically, this tendency just makes Duel more threatening, since his whole thing is just stand at a distance and send the water at people, but everyone else just looks lobotomized. There you go. This means that a lot of those openings aren't really earned, you just walked up and smacked them while they were standing there patiently. It's like there's a hard limit on their reaction time, so they have to wait a little bit in between actions. It's probably there just to keep the game from being too hard, but I think it needs some difficulty options. Personally, I really appreciate it when games are difficult, or at least have a difficulty setting that gives a good challenge. Being challenged forces you to use all the tools you're given, which just gives me a greater appreciation of the developers for having the insight to provide those tools. And I mean, yeah, I can easily see what this review would look like if it was too hard instead of too easy. I don't understand who was able to fucking playtest this. All the enemies have insane reflexes and they actually know how to play the game. They keep up such relentless pressure that you're pretty much in a three-way between your enemies and the camera. Admittedly, it is a lot more fun when you set the free battle AI to very hard, but the single player AI does not drive you to master its systems. Beyond just seeing what they did, I did not interact with features like blocking, counter move, and the entire consumable system that I literally fucking forgot about until now. I mean, sure, I should have used it, even if only to get footage of it, but when I'm setting up for a battle, I'm not like, oh no, both Kiras, this will be a challenging encounter. I'm mentally shutting off because before I can get started with the battle, I have to level up my fucking characters. Yeah, there's a level up system. It's not that bad of an idea on its face, but the execution of it makes it a genuine fucking detriment that drags the rest of the game down. As it's implemented, every character starts with almost every move locked behind their own unique skill tree. You fight battles, earn XP, and level up, unlocking those new skills, as well as a bunch of upgrades for minor stat boosts. Think about what a system like this can do for a second. Locking off a character's moveset and drip feeding you each move via the level ups gives you a chance to get used to each move and the utility that they provide to the character's overall kit. Remember, this is JoJo's. The powers are already really confusing, so I mean, it's a great idea to use this system to help the player out with this. The other thing a system like this does is reward the player for having a favorite. You like Jotaro? Bam, he's more powerful. If you're left without Jotaro, you'll definitely feel his absence, but he'll be a wrecking ball in the scenes he participates in. Put in the fucking ground. The massive rift between his presence and his absence could dampen your enjoyment of the game, but at least it's a consequence of your own actions. That's an interesting opportunity for the player to massively affect their own experience, but I can see where that would fall flat. Of course, this system as implemented is not fun or interesting. Eyes of Heaven almost masterfully ruins both of these possible advantages in one fell swoop. All of your characters level up equally, even ones you haven't unlocked yet. This just means you're limping through the early game with a gimped moveset, and then in the late game you get new characters dumped on you with the same amount of skill points as everyone else. But they haven't been spent yet, so you just have to go into the menu and unlock each node in their fucking tree one by one. It's like, oh hey, it's Johnny, I wonder how he plays. Oh, never mind, I gotta waste a minute of my fucking time in this utterly pointless menu. And then you still have to figure out the moveset for yourself.
What the fuck? Oh. Okay, so then there's also... What? Who will be the sacrifice? Oh, that's probably a counter. Oh. Why? Why is that an ability that I have?
Where's the fucking horse?
Why is that an ability? One of my abilities is just fall off the horse.
I mean, Gyro's tree is a spiral. That's kind of funny. But it just shows how useless this feature is. It's a completely linear progression, so all it does is waste my time for nearly a full minute. Cut this fucking feature. It sucks. You lose nothing from one tree being completely linear, you'd lose nothing if they leveled up automatically, and you'd lose nothing if this system just wasn't there at all. I mean, you'd lose my disdain, but I think that's a double negative. Overall, it might seem like I'm presenting the gameplay as just unfun, but it is really not. It's fun enough to occupy your time, but its issues mean that it's really not fun enough to stand up on its own. If the point was just gameplay, I'd be playing Yakuza. After all, I gotta catch up with the Snaker, but that's not the point. The point is seeing all the characters. How all those characters are portrayed and how they play are the absolute best parts of this game. It's why I like this game, even though the campaign mode kinda sucks and I don't have PlayStation Plus to play multiplayer. There is a litany of voice lines, costumes, color schemes, character interactions, animations, and poses. You're always picking different teams so you can see how they'll interact with each other, both in gameplay and in character. There are hours worth of YouTube videos that just show off all the stuff, and those videos were actually what made me want to get the game in the first place. On that front, the one thing I really don't get is the glossary. There are a ton of entries here on the most bizarre shit. There's an entire entry for shit like Speedwagon's goon, that one guy Dio kills, the fucking statue from the Joestar Manor. I have no idea why it's so astoundingly specific, but who is this for? This game came out in December of 2015. If it's for fans to brush up on their memory, they can just look shit up on their phone, or at the very least, the PS4's built-in web browser. If this is for people new to the series, the game spoils every single major character death, and it doesn't bother to explain a single thing. The story proceeds as if you're 100% familiar with the source material, like, oh, you're not caught up with JoJolion, so you don't know what these two stands do? Figure it out, dickhead. If the glossary was in the pause menu, it might serve that purpose a little bit, but it's in the main menu. It is completely pace-breaking to quit out, go to the main menu, go to the glossary, then read up on whatever you're curious about. It's better to just play the game and try not to think about it, since you really can't figure it out from the movesets alone. A ton of those movesets are really fun to see in action, and they fit their characters like a glove. For example, Joseph relies on traps and underhanded tactics, so his moveset reflects that. You run around the stage grabbing random stuff to help you get the upper hand, while also setting up Hamon traps that your opponents can trigger automatically. You also have the fucking Tommy gun, which is hilarious, and when you run out of ammo, it just becomes a Hamon-infused blunt weapon. His moveset relies on good spacing, so naturally you have one of the best spacing tools in the game. It's just so appropriate for Joseph to run away, get more prepared, and then come back with a plan. I love it. And I mean, personally, I think all the Hamon users are really fun. You power up your moves with Hamon, so of course there's an entire button dedicated to... The villains and antagonists have a lot of bitchin' movesets. Like 90% of Diablo's interactions with people is just donutting them, so his moveset revolves around difficult to land but extremely high damage attacks. Whole Horse shares a ton of moves with his Heritage for the Future counterpart, which is pretty funny. I mean, that was a pretty cool moveset, so why fix what's broken, right? It's just a shame that you don't get any bad guys in your party during the campaign. Some of the characters play kinda lame due to how they work in the manga. Like, Pet Shop is present for all of 10 minutes, so it doesn't really have any interesting abilities, and the fact that it's a tiny bird just makes it really annoying to fight. Generally, characters with the most screen time get the best movesets, probably just because Araki had more opportunities to come up with niche uses for their abilities. This means heroes and villains generally have the most fun and interesting movesets, followed by supporting characters and then minor antagonists. It's clear why some of the characters were added given their roles to the story, but like, what is Fugo gonna do? Run away at the 11th hour? Some fights play out remarkably close to their manga counterparts, whether it's diegetically through that character's strengths and weaknesses, or through extremely specifically coded interactions. On the diegetic end, Ndul's stand is very powerful, but if you can avoid his stand, you can just walk up and smack him. In the middle of the spectrum, Hamon is extra effective against vampires and pillar men, preventing them from regenerating, and at the insanely specific end, if the Kawajiri Kira has Stray Cat, then Okuyasu can just steal it with the hand. There's a lot of references like that on the gameplay side that are just awesome to see implemented into the characters' movesets. If you get interrupted while reloading as Mista, then you get a debuff where you can only load 4 bullets at a time. If you know anything about Mista, you know that's not good. Efreesti freaks out, which leaves you vulnerable, but then nothing bad happens. It's just his superstition causing a liability for you. It fits so well. The main issue with the representation on the gameplay side is how it's balanced. To my understanding of the lore, I don't think Gold Experience Requiem is even capable of losing, but there's probably no way to make that fair. Unfortunately, this just means that god tier characters and abilities in the lore become kinda underwhelming when you use them in the game. On the aesthetic side, I mentioned before that characters are cast near perfectly, but also their animations are just chock full of, well, character.
Yeah, he's got a UV laser.
Oh no!
Caesar!
There's so many little details and movements that you can recognize, like Jotaro never takes his left hand out of his pocket, Jonathan's dash comes from his football years.
Oh, he does the football run!
And Okuyasu's dash is from when he ran into a window. I mean, like, sure, you're not gonna get a totally unique running animation for every character, but the ones that do get one, they're fucking gold. Like, look how the Kiras run around. They're such dorks, I fucking love it. And that's not even the funniest run cycle in the game, that goes to Sapelli. I mean, look at this fucking clown, it's so perfect. The issue with all these crazy movesets is that there's a bit of an annoying learning curve, both for picking up a new character and figuring out what the fuck your opponent is doing. This is somewhat exacerbated by the Flash Burst, which gets you out of hit stun and sends your opponent flying. It's communicated by the character posing and shouting something, but multiple characters also have a counter move that's communicated by, you guessed it, posing and shouting. I mean, 90% of JoJo's is just posing and shouting, so I guessed readability was going to be scuffed from the word go, but it just means the beginning of every fight is really confusing since you'll press some buttons to see what the character does, and then you go try it out on the enemy and you get sent flying back, which I thought was universal game language for you fucked up. You can learn a lot of moves by just, pressing buttons and seeing things happen, but eventually you're gonna have to consult the move list to really understand what's going on. All the moves are named after a line in the manga associated with said moves, which is just not helpful at all. If you know your JoJo's, there's a few you can figure out on your own, like Daiichi no Bakudan. But please explain to me what the fuck this move does just by looking at it. I mean, Hermit Purple's ability is remote viewing, but he can also grab things and conduct Hamon, but why is my stamina going down? I think pressing it again toggles it off? Going by the animation, maybe it has something to do with when Joseph used Hermit Purple to make a map out of the sand on the ground? Nope, it just buffs your teammate. What? It gets even worse with more abstract powers like King Crimson. So who is this mysterious noble one? Yeah, big fucking surprise there. The setup is that while Funny Valentine was dimension hopping trying to escape the infinite spin, he went into a world where Dio didn't get ass-pulled by Jotaro, killed all the Crusaders, successfully achieved heaven, and then took over the world. Dio was pretty upset to learn that he was not the literal center of the universe, so he made Valentine take him back to the main world so he could conquer that too. All the weird shit we've been seeing was just our universe buckling under the effects of Dio's new stand. The world over heaven. It has the power to overwrite reality, even though I thought that's what Gold Experience Requiem was for, but the game says nope, doesn't count, so I mean, I guess it doesn't count. Now, if you're astute, which I wasn't, someone had to point this out to me, you might have remembered that Dio and Funny Valentine can't interact with each other. Parts 7 and 8 exist at a completely different continuum from parts 1 and 6. The references and connections between the two are purely metatextual. But I mean, Araki allegedly oversaw the story for this, so I guess he forgot. The plot itself is pretty pointless and directionless. The portals and anomalies are just contrivances to get all the characters to interact with each other in different situations. To give it some credit, I think using Dio and the Holy Corpse to involve characters from all 8 parts was a pretty good idea. I mean, Dio is just a classic villain, and since we know some assholes are inevitable to beat his new stand, the Holy Corpse provides a pretty good excuse to do that. At first, the story seems like it's moving really quickly. We get all the corpse parts and Joestars pretty early, and right when I was thinking, this can't be the end of the game, Dio just goes, nope, fuck you, doesn't count, do it again. And then you just do it again. I'll admit, I've never seen that before in a video game. It's not even like Dio taking the parts as atonement with the father and not having your companions as the abyss. You don't even get an apotheosis. It's like we made in heaven from ordinary world to atonement, and then bites the dust back to road of trials, and then we just King Crimsoned our way to Master of Two Worlds. If you know your Cample, then you know exactly where I'm going with this. Even after you collect the corpse parts again, the ending does not live up to its setup. Kinda like it's missing something. That setup being that we have all 8 Joestars and Speedwagon united to fight Dio, who has finished his evolution from hobbyist dickhead to intergalactic bellend. I really wanted to show you the live footage for me playing the ending, but that 5-minute diversion would have just obliterated the pace of the video, so I just stuck it at the end as bonus footage. Okay, yeah, no, stop it. I was gonna put that at the end as bonus footage, but this video is already fucking long enough, and I don't want it to look that much longer on the YouTube thumbnail, so no, it's gonna be a secret video. Keep an eye out for that. For those of you who are still here, I think I've come up with a perfect way to explain it. The game opens up with Jotaro punching Dio so hard he explodes. Since I brought it up, you can probably imagine exactly how the game ends. It's so dumb. Jotaro just decides that he has the same stand as Dio. It's never explained, nobody even asked. Okay. Video game. On a gameplay level, the final fight with Dio is just kinda silly because it's a 2v1, and his AI really can't handle fighting 2 people at the same time. He has a gimmick ability where he forces your teammate to change sides until you beat them up a little, but you can easily interrupt him while he's charging it. The real challenge of the fight is just chasing him around, since he'll randomly teleport between the top or bottom of this platforming tower. He does both of these gimmick moves randomly, so the only time he managed to steal my partner was when he teleported to the top of the tower and then instantly started charging his steal ability. I was ultimately disappointed in the story. I had better brawler games that I could be playing, and I don't have PlayStation Network, so I can't play the online. I only had one more reason to play this game, and that was to get more unlocks so I could see all the stuff. The gameplay is worse than other games that I could be playing, but it's easily fun enough to make that unlocking process enjoyable. Since I beat the game, I started to experiment with the stuff I already unlocked, when I came across a feature that almost just completely killed the game for me. It's seriously something you would never think would be such an issue. It's the actual menu you use to equip what you unlock. To start, you can't just equip anything from the character select screen. You can't even equip anything from the cosmetic menu. You have to make 3 different cosmetic presets. One for costumes, one for dual poses in quotes, and one for victory poses in quotes. You will not hear any extra lines, see any poses or costumes unless you do this, and the menu is almost designed to keep you from doing it easily. When you pick costumes, you'd assume that, since costumes are a visual thing, you'd get a preview of what each one looks like, right? Nope. You just have to pick from a text list with no unique names. If you really want to check, you have to back out, go to the cosmetic gallery, select the character, pick the model, wait for the loading screen, then you get to see what it is. And if you want to look at every single one, then you have to back out, select them again, pick a different costume, then wait for that loading screen. Why is it like this? If you want to set up Ketchup Dio versus Mustard Dio, you have to back out of the character select screen, go to the main menu, go to the cosmetic menu, make one preset with Ketchup Dio, which is going to take way too long because they really couldn't be fucked to give it a name, and then back all the way out to the main menu, then set up your fight, then try to remember which preset is which because no, you can't name them, then you get to have Ketchup versus Mustard Dio. Okay, look, I get it. You fired all of your UI or UX designers, or at least you just built this on top of an older system that didn't have to deal with this sheer volume of stuff. But at least give me a randomize button, dude. Did no one in development think, wow, this sucks, but it's too late to redo the whole menu? Let's just add a randomize button so players can choose not to interact with the whole system. I seriously do not have the patience for this menu, and I'm reminded of how much I'm missing every time I go for a dual combo and I just hear, I'm ripped out of the fun game I'm playing and reminded that I just didn't do enough fucking around with this menu. Okay, yeah, I might be a bit too worked up. It doesn't completely ruin the game, it just makes me really not want to play it. It's like, maybe I'll play some Eyes of Heaven today. Oh, wait, I'll probably have to use the cosmetic menu. It's not really worth turning on the PlayStation. Overall, despite any impressions I may have given you, this game is a great time. I had a lot of criticisms for it, but that doesn't mean I thought it was bad. I feel like I have to clarify that since this is the internet and people are only allowed to have binary opinions on things. If you're a fan of JoJo's, it's genuinely awesome to play through battles with all your favorite characters. If you're not a fan, I'm frankly surprised why you're still here, but there might be something for you. I mean, I doubt it, but there might be. That's really it today. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you thought of the video. You can fast forward a little bit if you just want the bonus footage. I'm going to talk about, myself and the channel now. If you're subscribed, first of all, thank you, but you may have noticed that it's been like 4 months since my last review, and that since uploading my first serious video, I've only made like 5 this year. Yeah, that's a real video. I think I need to optimize the title and thumbnail a little better to communicate that though. I'm in my 3rd year of college, so like all of my assignments are writing based, which takes time and energy away from my ability to do writing for these videos, which is the absolute hardest part for me. I've been struggling pretty much all year with procrastinating, being behind in school, not being able to get school done, let alone YouTube, and then I realized, yeah, that's probably symptomatic of something. So yeah, this video is brought to you in part by dextroamphetamine 10 milligram. Jokes aside, I'm pretty much fine now. Caught up with school, turns into some shit early, that's a first for me. And this interim of struggling to be productive, I did write like literally thousands of words for other projects, mostly Prey and Ratchet & Clank 2, but I took a break to make this video, both to test out the new workflow and because I thought it would be an easy and short video, but there turned out to be a lot I wanted to talk about. So yeah, I mean, expect more videos soonish since I'm making a lot of progress in improving my working habits. I have a ton of work done for Prey, but honestly that game just feels, I don't know, it feels too big for me, like I'm not good enough to cover it. So maybe that's going to be on the back burner for way longer. The next video might be the 2 one-finger death punch games. I've played enough of the first game to develop a really deep appreciation for it, and making a video would give me a good excuse to get the second game and take a really close look at it. Although I recently played Darkest of Days, which is fucking awesome, and I'm gonna make a video on that at some point. I don't know if it's gonna be the next one, but it's definitely it's definitely in the pipeline because of how great that game was. Also, shout out to my one patron, Ghastly Gaming. I don't expect or even ask that you support my Patreon since these videos are just the result of my free time outside school and my actual job. However, I genuinely enjoy working on shit like this, even though it takes a ton of time and effort to do. Like at this point, I spend the majority of my time in Google Drive, either doing homework or working on a video, so it would be great if I could eventually move from free time video making to part-time video making. If I get a couple more patrons, I'll implement some actual rewards. I know that's lazy, but I don't have a community at the moment, so effectively monetizing that community isn't a priority at all. For now, I just need to keep making high-effort stuff. So yeah, this video's been long enough already. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't. Here's the bonus footage.